Greetings, my name is JC,
And I'm Ian.
and this is the Gaiden Show, Episode 3. So, in this episode, we're going to be talking about some gaming news and a smaller, segmented section on setting games down and moving on from them. Why that happens to us, and why we think it kind of happens to other people as well, as how to prevent it. So, to start off with gaming news, we have three topics for today. The first one being the new game Valorant by Riot Games coming out. It's been in closed beta for a while now. I think about a couple months almost. There was kind of like a couple waves of closed beta, and the official launch is in about a week, actually, June 2nd.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They managed to push this out the door fairly quickly, and I'm not that much of a first-person shooter fan, as some fans of the series are aware of, but I find this interesting because much like the philosophy that they used in their card game Legends of Runeterra, they basically, if you're not aware, took ideas that all the employees and designers liked from all of their different card games that they liked, and they're doing the same and put them into one game that they're designing themselves. And they're doing the same idea with the Valorant game. Basically, they've looked at all of the different first person shooter games that they like and enjoy themselves, like Counter Strike or Overwatch and Fortnite and stuff like that, and they've kind of decided, okay, like what makes sense to work together, and how do we make our own unique game from all the different things that we like from all these different games. Uh,
Well, that was my first comment when I watched the trailer was
mhm.
that this looks like Counter-Strike, but with like the heroes and hero abilities from Overwatch.
Yeah, which like that's a really interesting kind of like sales pitch because Overwatch doesn't play anything like Counter Strike, and if you look at the gameplay in the footage, this actually it does kind of have that Counter Strike feel to it. So,
It really does, very much so. So,
hmm
I mean, I'm here for it. I'll download it. I'll give it a go.
yeah,
Um, I
yeah,
mean, it's probably free.
it probably their sales model has generally been that their games have been free, but any cosmetics that you would like to purchase, or some of their events, for example, like Clash, you can use Blue Essence technically, but if you want better prizes, you have to give them RP.
Yeah,
And that's kind of been their sales model, which, in my opinion, if you're gonna do kind of like microtransactions, it's kind of a fair way to do it because like we have some friends who haven't put a dime into League of Legends and have gotten years and years of enjoyment out of it.
and you and
So
I have
spent too much on it.
we prefer not to think about how much we spent on League of Legends.
Yeah,
That's probably why I keep playing League of Legends, but,
probably. Yeah. But we have one friend from League who actually got a beta pass, who is a huge first person shooter fan, and his testimony was that he was quite enjoying it. They seem to be making some big changes and stuff like that over the beta, and from what I can tell, taking fan feedback from the beta testers to heart. So I'm interested in I'm interested to see how successful this is and whether or not it
yeah.
kind of starts a new esport in the industry, because that's kind of what Riot Games is also good at and kind of pioneered a little bit, is kind of bringing to front like and popularizing like esports through League of Legends, and they've told people that they're planning on doing it for Legends of Runeterra, and they've also had some kind of community-driven ones in their local area with Teamfight Tactics. So I'm imagining that they're going to do something with it, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see as time goes on, as more and more people play this game, and as they update it, where it goes. So, and who knows, maybe we'll give it a try.
Yeah, and it's an interesting take because a lot of the other, competitive first-person shooters do have that entry fee
Hmm
to start playing. Like, you have to pay for Rainbow Six Siege, you've gotta pay for Overwatch, you've gotta pay for
Yeah, PUBG
Fortnite.
seems to be the only
Fortnite's free,
one.
sorry.
Yeah,
I paid for Fortnite.
yeah. because you were an early adopter. But like Fortnite and PUBG, which are just the battle royale ones, they seem to be like the prime examples where you don't have to do that upfront cost to
I think PUBG is still $30.
was it? I don't remember.
I think so.
Maybe it was gifted to me. I could be wrong about that. I had some friends who were playing it, and they encouraged me to play it. So yeah, yeah,
So in other news, we had a tech demo running in the Unreal 5 engine.
yeah. This one actually looks really cool.
Yeah, this was really interesting, and it was running on a PS5 as well, which
Mm-hmm.
another interesting thing.
Yeah,
Um, I'm a little sad that it is a tech demo and not like an actual game because like watching it, I'm like, I want to play this. This looks really interesting.
yeah. A lot of people have made that comment in the comment section on like Unreal's YouTube page, where they're like, "What game is this? When do I get to play it?" And
They're like never.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's never anyway, because the um the game is just that it's a tech demo. I'm not sure what it would be, but you never know. Maybe it will be another one, but some of
Yeah,
the
maybe it'll be like Final Fantasy VII remake.
maybe yeah, but some of the key points of the in video that are kind of interesting is that it went over quite a few new features that basically describe sort of where the engine is going. And to my understanding, some of these features sort of already exist in one way or another, but the tool sets, as through a developer standpoint, is basically going to be um, automating and helping people who make video games just their lives easier, as well as some of these like improved feature sets that just don't exist. And it's really cool to see where the sort of game engine is going and sort of where video games are going as well. Because although games might not necessarily look 100% as good as this tech demo that you're seeing now, they're definitely going to be looking a lot better. And because, like, if you put this into context, this is probably a terabyte of information that was like uploaded to a dev kit of a PS5. And your game's not going to be a terabyte of information for like 10 minutes of like gameplay slash um sort of like railed content. And what I mean by that is like this might right here on the screen that you see, it might be a QTE that you press and then she automatically goes through. Like we're not entirely certain. But some of the features that they talked about was better bounce effects, using their Lumen engine essentially, and basically what that means is better ray tracing, right, better ray tracing light reflections. The other thing that they talked about was virtualizing their geometry using the nanite portion of the engine. And basically, what they'll be able to do is take film quality assets from ZBrush and then port them straight into the engine, which it sounds like I have never used Unreal Engine. I'm not 100% familiar with it, but I don't think it's as easy or doable at the moment in the current version of Unreal. So what this will do is basically it'll I'm not sure if this is going to matter because people only use those as reference anyway today, and the way that the industry works, like the range of PCs and consoles that'll be able to run all these assets that are imported in this fashion are going to be incredibly high. So I'm a little skeptical on that, but it's neat that they can definitely do it. So you'll probably see it for key features, like maybe like a boss or something like that, or a specific room or something. Like if you play a Telltale game, for example, you'll realize that some of the animations and some of the scenes are better than others, and the reason why is because they're known as budgeted and non-budgeted scenes. And if it's a budgeted scene, then you can get custom animation done. But if it's a non-budgeted scene, then you have to use existing assets and tools in the game engine um, in order to complete that scene. And how I know this is there's a documentary on the definitive edition of The Walking Dead that I watched through, and they explain this in the director's commentary, basically. Yeah, but the other stuff that this thing kind of does is really fascinating, and it looks really cool. The physics kind of look better. Like if I skip back here, you'll notice like how everything is reacting. Apparently, that's sort of like off the lighting and stuff like that. So they're probably using like ray tracing and particle effect like interactions, and it'll do it a lot better. And in this section here, where the stones fall, the stones seem to fall more naturally. Like this stone, sort of right here, you'll notice it falls and it continues to like sort of wobble a little bit. If you compare that to sort of today, most of them sort of like just fall and then topple on their side into a set position, but that doesn't look like it fell into a set position.
No, it's a
Um,
lot more natural.
yeah.
Again, that's gonna be more automation and less things that, that people have to program going forward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it has those algorithms to make that happen
Yeah.
instead of it being a lot on an individual to create that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it could speed up production.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the main thing with a lot of these feature sets and stuff like that is that it will speed up production. Yeah, and so the other thing that they talk about is that the sounds that you hear will be more realistic. I I personally find that this is super interesting because I have like a surround sound system for my PlayStation, but for the majority of people out there, they use headphones, and though they're good stereo headphones, they're probably not even getting that effect. So I don't really know how many people are going to have like Dolby Atmos system in their living room to be able to get all the actual effects, because like playing Uncharted, even for example on headphones, is a completely different experience than playing with 5.1 surround sound. It's as if you're playing a different game. But it's cool that they're actually working on these types of technologies still, even though it is a little bit more niche. So I'm happy that they're doing that type of stuff, because like they explain sort of in this scene right wait one sec. They explain in this scene right here, where you can kind of hear the echoes in the cave and stuff like that, that this is all being done based off of like echo locations basically. And so what that means is that like whenever they make a sound, instead of it being a directed sound, they can use the architecture of the game basically to bounce it off the existing polygons basically, and since they're more accurate, it will be more realistic essentially.
Which is
So
super cool. Like, that's gonna make a huge difference. I mean, it'll make a huge difference for everything,
mhm.
but, like, think of the applications for, like, horror,
Yeah, exactly. Like
you
the
know,
next
having
Resident Evil game with this type of like actual like well done like sound locations, like the stuff that they'll be able to do with the zombies and stuff like that is going to be freaking amazing.
oh, it'll be mind-blowing, especially since it from the things that I had heard, I could be
Mhm.
very wrong, but it does sound like that they are gonna kinda stay in that first person,
Mhm.
um, camera type for a little bit,
Right.
especially with RE8, and, yeah, I mean, that was scary enough on its own.
Mhm.
Imagine having better audio.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's just more terrifying.
In addition to the sound improvements, they also called something called Niagara effects, which is basically particles. So if I skip over back to the video, that's kind of like allowing everything to interact with the particles. And if you look at a scene like this part right here, you'll notice as the light hits everything as she's walking, how it naturally sort of like goes into the small crevices and stuff like that, like over here. This is impressive. Like that usually is painted on and done, from my understanding from watching people, actual game developers' reactions to this video. Like right here. Um, see if I can stop and get an actual thing. So like how the light falls on all these different polygons. A lot of the times, just to get it done looking correctly, they paint it on. But as she walks forward, you can kind of tell this light from her orb basically interacts with each of them, and it looks super natural as it goes through. Like even going to where she moves the this thing right here, notice the lighting effect from a lighting source that you can't even tell on here, that's sort of moving on the on the polygon structure, like right here. You'll notice as she actually turns it, like this is done now, but not necessarily as like natural. And I'm curious to see, like, this is the infancy of this game engine. at a high level. Like, what is
Yeah.
the normal portion of the game engine going to look like, and what is it going to look like 5.5, for example, right? Like, this is really interesting because all this seems to be basically um, from a standpoint of like making lives easier, making everything look better and cooler. And yeah, I'm excited personally because with innovation from the Unreal Engine, the Unity engine will become more innovative and add in features. And then I'm sure Blender will add in a bunch of features, and so will Maya Studio 3D will add in a bunch of features and stuff like that. And it's just going to mean better looking games in the future. And as a lot of my friends know, I'm not super about graphics, but I will not complain about the graphics looking great.
Oh, it's
Um,
true, and, like, the thing is, this is going to get out into the hands of devs,
mm-hmm,
because right now it's kinda in-house,
mm-hmm,
which is fine, but putting it out in the public is gonna give it to people who are going to maybe push it in directions that you might not have thought of.
yeah,
You
and
know, the developers and designers see one purpose for that, or I mean, they might see several purposes for a system, but they might not think of other things. The more people that touch it, the more directions it's going to get pushed, and the farther the boundaries are going to go, and we're
right.
going to see just absolutely mind blowing things in probably 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, because this is coming out in a year, as you just saw in the last part of the video, and it's going to be mind blowing. We already know that the
Yeah,
next gen of consoles looks like a pretty good jump, or at least it does in my opinion, and this looks very mind blowing. My only disclaimers is that this is a tech demo. It's probably like 1 or 2 terabytes, like unloaded for a 10-minute scene onto a PlayStation. So just realize it's like we're like it ran at a perfect frame rate. It's probably not going to run at a perfect frame rate. Like we're kind of living in an age where like we used to be like, "Oh, I wish the game looked like that." And whenever we saw a trailer, now it's like is it going to run at 60 frames a second or 144 frames a second? Like, I don't know. Oh, it's locked at 30. Like we're already seeing rumors of some PlayStation 5 um uh, and the new Xbox consoles. Like there I forget which one it was, but there was a game that was locked at 30. One second. Okay, so I found it. So this article here is the new Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It says that it will run at 4K and at least 30 frames a second on the new Xbox. What? To me that's unacceptable. And like it's going to be an issue moving forward. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's like okay, like as we get into better tech that people are using essentially, like what is the ramifications of all these great looking like particle effect features and stuff like that? Like are you going to give me the ability to have the game look on medium settings instead of high settings so that I can have that 60 frames or 144 frames? Because like on my computer, if you have a monitor that'll do it, like right now, like 244 is available. Like think of that, right? Like 144 is kind of like a standard with certain genres of games right now on the PC, and 30 frames, like sure, it might not necessarily matter if you want like that film quality look or something like that, or if it's just turn based because you can just kind of like deal with it, so to speak. But the animations in playing a game, if you compare them side by side and actually play it from 30 frames to 60 frames, is huge. And like I play League on 144, and I can't play on 30 frames a second. Like it plays differently. In some games it does actually matter. In some games it won't, but in some games it does actually matter. And if they're designing games, let's say like the new Call of Duty and stuff like that, and it's locked because it has all these features and they just can't keep that continual performance because us as gamers complain if we have hiccups in our performance, right? That's going to be an issue, I think. So I I'm just curious to see how efficient this is going to run, and I hope that their updates to the engine keep it efficient because the Unreal Engine isn't 100% known for being like none of them are known for being the best engines. They have their pros and cons, but it's like render distance and pop and lock graphics have been an issue since like Unreal Engine 1. and it's like there's better programmers know how to basically mask it, take a couple extra seconds to load and stuff like that. But it's like, how are they going to deal with these like ZBrush inserted assets and stuff like that and not have it like render in if you have it coming in if they don't like know how to use all these tools? So I just hope that it's going to help a little bit in that respect so that we don't have to deal with the like Mass Effect 1 basically Normandy coming in and it looks like a PS1, then it looks like a PS2, and oh look, PS3 graphics. Yay! Right? Like, because then games are just going to continue to look like PS4. Is the reason why I'm bringing this up. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
but cool nonetheless. I am super
yeah,
excited about it.
yeah, and I mean, it's super promising.
Mm-hmm.
But you had another news piece you wanted to talk a bit more about.
Yeah, so I am a big fan of The Last of Us 2, and there's a few things that have been going around the internet. If you're online at all, you're probably aware. So I'm gonna cover like whether I'm gonna be playing the game or not, and especially since I've talked about this game a lot over the last year. And there's a new console as I'm showing right now. I'm not getting the console, but I do think it looks really beautiful. I don't need it because I got the Death Stranding one. But
It's kind of a bold move too, like just what, 6 months? Not even 6 months, like a
mhm.
3 or 4 months before the next console comes out to put out
I
a
mean,
console edition for the game.
you knew they were gonna do it, but there's a cool controller. You can buy that separately if it interests you, or there's a console. You can buy that if it interests you, and it's coming out on the 19th, just like the game. And yeah, so the game was essentially leaked by. It was confirmed that it was leaked from Sony. They confirmed that it was an outside source that did it. There's a lot of rumors going around, but that allegedly is the truth from Sony. And I'm aware of the spoilers. I've read them and didn't watch the scenes, but I read them and watched some opinion videos on it. Um, I'm still gonna play the game just because I agree that context is everything. So I have a feeling I'm still gonna be highly disappointed because I know enough information to kind of form my own opinion on it. But I find this super unfortunate, and I think the way that Sony is handling this, which is basically DMCAing, takedowning everybody who's even talking about it, and showing the clips are being more explicit about the information, they have been hitting people with it, and I think that's kind of stupid. So my message is like, stop it. Why would you do that? I know I don't have a voice for Sony to listen to, but um, yeah, I just sue the person who leaked the information if you allegedly know who it is and handle it. Like, it's already happened. This is the internet. You know how it works. And if you want vengeance, that's how corporations take vengeance. You have the
Yeah.
funds. Go ahead and do it. And I just hope that all of the stuff isn't necessarily as bad as they say. I know a couple of things you can't change some certain facts about things. Um, just so that it's like maybe a 6 or 7 out of 10 instead of a 9 or 10 out of 10 like the first game is. Yeah,
I
but
mean, you know what? At the end of the day, think about Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of
mm-hmm,
Liberty. I know a lot of people like give it grief because yeah, you play that intro, which was amazing with Snake, and you expect it to just continue on, and then they pull the whole switch, and now you're playing as Raiden for the entire game.
yeah, I've heard
I,
of that parallel before too.
End of the day, like Sons of Liberty was still a very good game.
Right, but it's
It was
how
it
they
was
do it.
executed in a great manner, and yeah, they pulled a huge bait and switch, and suddenly now you're a character that you do not know and you don't care about, and everyone's up in arms about it. But I love Sons of Liberty. I played through Sons of Liberty like 3 or 4 times, and I would gladly play through it again. And I love the inclusion of Raiden into the series as a whole. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things that until we actually get a hands on,
It
you can release information after information and tell people, but it's the
Well,
It's like
like
you said,
the majority.
context is everything.
True, but the majority of the script was released, and context and is everything. But the how when you do it, and sort of like the justice you do to all of your previous canon, unless you're not abiding by it, which most fans don't like. If you don't abide by canon, insert in any people who complain about like canon changing in different film industries and stuff like that. And
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
so
But
we'll see. I'll
I think
definitely have an opinion on it whenever I play it. So,
even though the script is out there, as we know, there are generally differences between the script as printed and what we actually see.
but
So,
keep in mind also though, Ian, that the script that was released is the version of it that was sent after the copy. From what I understand, to the copy to basically the one that they're going to publish. So them being able to change all that stuff within a month and a half is incredibly unlikely. And if they double
I'm not
down,
saying that there's gonna be drastic changes. I'm
mhm,
just saying that there will definitely be small changes between the script that has been leaked as well, like, and what actually came out.
yep. But I'm going to be
Because
playing the
nothing's been
game.
released yet, so
Sure.
well, like, the game's not out.
The game's not out, but gameplay footage from the game that you're actually going to be getting is out, and that's how they know what's happening. So
No,
that's not going to change.
I do understand that, but the full game is not released in retail.
It's very optimistic
The
of you. So
well, the
game is
general
coming out.
population doesn't have their hands on this.
All right. So game is coming out. I'm still getting it, likely, and I'll play it and let you know. Ian is very optimistic about this.
I mean, I'm probably not gonna play it 'cause I didn't play the first one.
You
So,
probably won't want to. So it's all
I
right.
mean, I might play it and love it just out of spite. Who knows? That's,
I mean, if you played the second game without playing the first one, you might like it. Time will tell. Anyway, let's move
still
on.
probably won't.
Sure.
It's gonna be no Maneater. At the end of the day, I don't even know why you would release a game during this time period. You've got Maneater out right now. Why put anything else out? If it's gonna be on one of the current like, if it's gonna be on a PS4 or anything like that, I can understand releasing Switch games. The Switch is just not quite powerful enough to handle the amazingness that is Maneater. But
Mhm.
anything else, just wait until, like, late summer. Let everyone get their Maneater out of the way.
Well, looking forward to your review on that.
Anyways, moving on to our actual, like, discussion.
Hmm.
On the note of JC either beating it Last of Us 2 or putting it down, uh, putting games down and moving on.
Yeah.
It's a pretty natural thing when it comes to playing games, unfortunately. Some people are really good at avoiding this, and some of us, like myself, are horrible
Hmm.
at actually completing games.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's an issue that plagues like almost all of us as gamers, especially with so many games being out there, and I think that's one of the reasons why it happens. You have like even in the 90s, like there are tons of games that are being released and they're all competing for your attention, and as time goes
yeah,
on, this number of games being released grows and this becomes harder and harder. And another thing is like if you like multiple genres of games, if you don't and you only like one genre, I envy you, because then your game choice is limiting, because like you don't have to decide like am I going to play, I don't know, the new action adventure game or the new first person shooter game or the new RPG, right? Like you're going to have games that release in all these different genres, and you have to decide, unless you're spending like hundreds or thousands of dollars a month, you have to decide, which most of us can't do. Like I can't do that.
no.
That's crazy.
And
And
it's not even necessarily the monetary aspect of it. It's the actual time.
mhm,
You know, uh, as adults with full-time jobs and family responsibilities, you have a set amount of time that you can play games.
yeah.
And if something pops up in your schedule unexpectedly, now suddenly you don't have that time. So even like trying to say to yourself, okay, this big title that I really want to play comes out on this date. If I pick it up when it's released, I'll have time to finish it before next big title comes out that I really want to play.
Yeah. And
And
there's an interview with Amy Hennig, and she kind of goes over this as to like why her games are like 8 to 12 hour experiences basically, and it's because all games compete with her time, and like she'll as good as The Walking Dead 2, she said, is she'll probably never get around to it because she doesn't have 40 to 60 hours just to play it. Like, there's books she wants to read or movies she wants to watch and other games that she wants to play and stuff like that. Like, maybe try it, but then ultimately put it down just because it is too long. And, like, some of us have families or kids or jobs or hobbies and everything. And, like, in her opinion, games should be, like, a set amount of time in some cases because of that.
well, and it becomes a bit of a challenge too when you incorporate things like MMORPGs or
Hmm.
uh, competitive online games like League of Legends or
Yeah,
any of those things we talked about at the beginning of this video, Counter
yeah,
Strike, Overwatch. Because those games, if you're playing like 3 hours of it, you're not going to have the same experience if you play a couple hundred hours of it.
and it's interesting that you bring that up because if you've paid attention to like the updates that have happened to games like World of Warcraft or League of Legends and some other like online experience games. In the mid 2000s, you probably noticed like most of the instances in a game like WoW or like an online match of like Age of Empires 2 or 3 would be a couple of hours, or in the case of like a raid, it might take like 4 hours to do. But then they started developing dailies and weeklies and the quests that were easier, um, geared towards a shorter experience just because they still wanted people to be able to play because people were basically like growing up with the industry and they only had time for that like 30 minutes or an hour daily or something like that.
Yeah.
And League of Legends constantly talks about this on their updates and stuff like that, and why they make changes, and like why did they add in the Elder Dragon, right? A reason why they added in the Elder Dragon is because they don't want 50-minute games. Now those still happen, but the thing is that
Not
like
anywhere near as often.
not as often. No, like if a game lasts 40 minutes, it's an epic battle, but then somebody gets like Elder Dragon and Baron and then the game basically ends because of that. And then, if you lose due to that, you're like, "Oh, this is so dumb because like only lost because they got that one thing." It's like, "Yeah, they did you did, and it's because they didn't want games to last that long."
No, they wanna speed up the experience because they
Exactly.
want you to be more engaged.
Mhm.
They want you to say like, "Oh, hey, I've got an hour to play games. Okay, I'll play League."
Yeah.
Because I know that I have enough time to queue in and enough time to, go through all the pregame stuff, get into a game, and at the very most, I might be playing for 40 or 50 minutes. So
Exactly.
you can invest that time, whereas, before, when games were consistently close to an hour,
Mhm.
you don't necessarily have time to queue into something, and you'll think about that. You'll be like, "Well, I only have an hour until I've gotta go do this, so I'm gonna just play an hour of, like, GTA or,
Mhm.
I'll put an hour into whatever game it is that I'm playing right now."
Yeah, something that doesn't necessarily take as much focus because our lives are like that, where we don't
Yeah.
necessarily always have time to sit down for 8 or 10 hours and play a game, like without stopping, right? Like that's not
And
everybody can
I
do
know
that.
for me, that's why the Switch has really taken over as a dominant console for me
Mm-hmm.
because it's something that I can I can have on my nightstand, and, if I wake up a little bit early, I can play for half an hour, and then
Mm-hmm.
I can put it in sleep mode, and
Yeah.
it'll stop where I was, and I can just grab it again and jump back in. I've finished a lot more games recently thanks to that
Mm-hmm.
than I had in a long time. So, I mean, that's kind of, I guess, leaning on the how you go about preventing
Yeah.
putting a game down is by actually being able to focus a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
and know that, okay, yeah, I've got 30 minutes, I can grab this and play, or, you know, we wanna, my wife wants to watch some TV with me. Sure, I'll watch some TV and I'll have my Switch and I'll,
Yeah.
I'll focus a bit on the TV and I'll focus a bit on my Switch.
Yeah, I used to do that
And
with the DS and PSP all the time with Max. It like just
yeah,
allows you to
it's
play games on the side there. Yeah, I think one of the best things that I've heard from some gamers in the past was two separate coworkers who did the same thing. Um, my one coworker, she used to play DS games a lot, but she would never take the cartridge out and until the game was beaten, and she would beat the game like regardless of whether she liked it or not, which is a different problem. But they would essentially just keep the cartridge in there. So like if anybody bought them a game, they had a stack of games and it grew higher and higher. Like she would stop buying games basically because it's like, oh, I've got 4 games in my stack, like I don't need any more or something like that. And then because that game never left, the focus stayed on that one game. And one of my more recent coworkers, he does the same thing, and where like they'll just like keep like the disc in the console, for example, or they won't download another game or something just to keep the focus on that one game, so that they play through it. Even if a new game comes out, let's say this Friday, but they're still playing it, they won't even and they pre-ordered it. They won't download it until the time has come to actually play it, because if it's there and available, then they'll just get distracted and play that game, right? So to stop that, that's a method that I've seen, which I've kind of used a little bit. Like I'll keep the disc in the console and I'll be like, no, I'm not moving it, because then I'm gonna not come back to this game and I really want to beat this. Because sometimes we do this unintentionally due to just getting distracted, right? It's video game
yeah,
ADD, as you've called it, right? And
yep.
those are,
I have a really bad case of it.
mm-hmm,
And that's part of it. Like the focusing on actually staying there makes a massive difference in finishing it. It's like you said, leaving the disc or the cartridge in the console
mm-hmm,
and not swapping it out will help you.
yeah,
Leaving it in an accessible place. Just like I know my wife just finished the Final Fantasy VII remake, and if we didn't have the PlayStation hooked up to our TV in the bedroom, which I know probably not everybody would agree with, but if we didn't have that up there, she probably wouldn't have played it at all.
mm.
That I don't imagine she would have been like, "Oh, I'm gonna make sure to go downstairs and you know jump on the PlayStation
Yeah, everybody kind of plays
downstairs."
differently.
That's yeah, like we all have different ways that we interact with the media that we like to. So making it accessible for you. That's very much going to make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
So let's maybe get into some examples of times where we've done this and maybe why.
Yeah, yeah.
JC,
Yeah,
what do you got?
I'll start. So I really like puzzle games and adventure games, and kind of the pinnacle of that genre is Myst. And I kind of feel bad about this, but I never actually have beaten Myst. And what a couple of reasons why is excuses, but I never actually owned it whenever it was like newish, and the DS version was the first version that I actually ever got. And I sat down and played it for a few hours to try and beat it myself, like without a walkthrough. But then like the DS was an era where I was just like getting a ton of different games, and it was years of distraction for me. So that's kind of like why I never actually ended up beating Myst. And yeah, it's unfortunate. Maybe I should get it on GOG and then and play through it. But Myst
DS
is,
era was challenging. You had
yeah,
tons of games releasing at a breakneck speed between 20 and like $40.
mm-hmm, yeah,
That's it's hard to compete.
yeah, it is hard to compete. Ian, what's your first?
It's actually a twofer. Both Persona 3 and Persona 5. I
Okay,
put I'm actually I think my save file in Persona 5 is around 100 hours.
wow,
Yeah. And I put it down. I know it released when we were in the process of moving,
mm-hmm,
and I was so stoked about it. I packed away every other game I had, but I still had my PS5 out. And I popped it in. I played it for a couple hours. I'm like, "Oh, this is so cool. This is so slick. I love it."
mm-hmm,
And then it's like we finally move and, you get into your new place, everything's just chaos. And it was like months and months before I even got back into it. And then like by then so many other things have released. And I think I didn't pick it up again really until like almost a year later.
Mm.
And I put like I still put in a ton of time. I did all of the things that I should have. I left the disc in the console. But then,
I
more stuff comes out. League of Legends is a huge problem I know for me in pulling away my gaming time. So
yeah.
it's one of those things. It just fell by the wayside. Same with Persona 3. I played through probably 50 hours and then uh the Fest disc came out. So I started that over because you could import your save file and
Mhm.
start over again. I put another 50 hours into it and put it back down again.
Yeah, I've had that issue happen a few times as well. Being a person who's moved a lot, where you move and you get distracted. That's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
It's happened twice with that series. Even I mean, even to a lesser extent 4, because I picked it up on the Vita thinking, "Yeah, I'll play it on the Vita for sure." It's handheld. Nope. Nope. 20 hours, forget it. But, you got another one for me, JC?
Yeah, so we talked about Grand Theft Auto 5 before, and I hammered through that game without a problem. Just kept on playing it. And generally, I really like the stories in GTA, but I never beat GTA 4. I got bored of the game and dropped it. I'm not sure why I got bored of it, but I just think it got to a
It's
part where it became mundane and it didn't really
yeah,
seem like it
it's
was important anymore. So I just went on to other games because it really, in my opinion, dragged its feet a little bit too much.
well, it focused a lot on social interactions. It really pushed you into making
Mhm.
those social connections, and those were some dry parts of the game. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I do not blame you, friend.
Yeah. GTA 4 doesn't rank as highly as some of the previous and even GTA 5 games, in my opinion. And it just, the game lost focus, I lost focus. Your next one, Ian?
Spider-Man, the PS4.
Okay. You talked
I
about
loved it.
this a little bit in this, our channel a little bit.
Yeah, and it's so good. I loved it. I got to the final boss fight, and it was so out of place. I
Hmm.
died so many times because of like falling off of the building. There's
Right.
no options to pull yourself back up on top of the building. It locks you into an arena on top of a building. Yeah, you're in an open arena
Right.
that I just kept falling off the sides. And I know the argument is just get good, but I died so many times, and it restarts you from the beginning each time. And I'm like, forget it. Forget it. I'm done. Yeah.
I mean, at least
I
there was a checkpoint to the beginning of the battle.
there was. There was, but it irritated me because it was everything else about the game was just so well done. All of the other boss fights
Yeah.
were just amazing. But this one just felt like a mistake.
Hmm.
I know what they were going for, this big epic fight on top of a building, but like at least let me be able to swing back on top of the building. I'm Spider-Man. It's not like me going over the edge of a building is gonna just to end the fight for me.
Hmm.
It's not. So yeah, I have some hard feelings about Spider-Man. Amazing game. The ending just I almost broke a controller. So
Fair enough.
you got another one, JC?
Yeah, Saga Frontier. I'm actually quite a big fan of this series, but I never beat the first Saga Frontier. And if I recall correctly,
Okay.
the only reason why was because uh, I know I didn't get this game whenever it came out. A friend had it, but then Brave Friends from Musashi came out, and I was like, "Whoa, this game's awesome! I'm going to play that game instead." So it was an example of sort of where you're playing a game that you really like, but then something better comes along, and it's just like I'm going to spend my time playing this like game because it's more enjoyable. It's just an all intensive purposes like a better game. And Saga Frontier is one of those examples where like I've gone back to this game and played it, and I think I got through like 2/3 of it, but then it lost my interest again for like the same reason. Like the new game came out, and I was just like, oh okay, well I was just playing this game to sort of fill in time, and then I've just never actually gotten around to beating it. I might have done everything in the game because I remember there's like a handful of characters in the game and basically play through their storylines. And once you beat all their storylines, then you play the final like push with like all the characters and like Blue basically as like the main
Okay.
character. So I remember I made a point. I didn't have a save, but I remember I made a point of like, okay, I played like these three people and then I played like the rest of them. So I've probably beaten all the storylines, but I've never actually like had a save with the storylines completed to play that end part. That's basically what my problem is. So yeah, I've never actually beaten the game because of that. Because it was just like, well, I've already done this. So and there's quite a bit of grinding in this game if you're
Mm.
gonna do it well. So that kind of prevented me from beating it too. But never beaten Saga Frontier One. That's the game. So maybe one of these days. Maybe not. Time will tell. Your third one, Ian.
Astral Chain.
Okay.
And I think this is a really good example of just how things can happen, and you just like have to move on.
Right.
Astral Chain came out and I picked it up. I didn't actually start playing it right away because I was playing something else.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was playing it the one morning, and we had to take I think that morning we had to take our cat to the vet, and like we got there, he wasn't doing good. We ended up having to put him down. And yeah, I I've tried going back to it, but I just can't. I can't. I literally had to put it down because playing it kind of brings me back to that,
Right.
and it reminds me of it. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I cared a lot about Steve, and it's uh it's really hard to go back and play it when it makes you think about that one moment in time.
Mm-hmm. And games will
You
do
know
that, whether it's in a positive or negative light. Like, we
exactly.
go back to play games to remember our childhoods or certain people we played games with and stuff like that, and it can happen in a negative light as well.
Yeah. So I mean, it sucks. I've heard really good things about it, but it's just when I try to go back to it, that's just what it reminds me of. And I mean,
Right.
maybe a couple years down the road when it's a little bit less fresh, because that was
Mm-hmm.
only in September
Yeah.
that happened. So, maybe a few years from now, I'll be able to handle those emotions a little bit better,
Right.
and I'll be able to give Astral Chain another chance. Because again, it's from Platinum. I love Platinum.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I as of right now, I'm stuck just a couple hours into it. So
That's
we'll
fair.
see. But we actually have a combined fourth response.
Yeah, this one's for both of us. Skyrim.
What is it? Yep.
Yeah, so I've played 120 hours of this game, and I beat like chapters 3 to 4 or 4 to 5. I forget how many chapters there are of like the main game. I know I only had like a chapter and a half basically left to do. And I have the strategy guide for this, and I looked at it to make sure I wasn't doing repeating quests that were because and then I used the checklist and I've completed like 70 to 80% of like all the content in the game. And I've beaten one of the DLCs, technically two of them because there's a house one, but like that's not really a DLC. But I've never actually beaten the main storyline. And yeah,
Here's the other question to that, JC. How many times do you own this game?
I only own it for the PC.
Oh,
Oh no, sorry. The bundle that I bought for the PSVR came with a copy of it. So technically I've bought it twice, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. No, I have no interest in buying this game for the console because I like my friends played it on the console and I watched them play it. Then I played it on the PC and in my opinion it plays so much better and it looks so much better. It
eh,
just yeah.
I'm with you on that, and as well, it came with it just upgraded free to their
Yep.
like um enhanced edition or
Yeah.
whatever they ended up calling it. I can't remember.
Yeah. But
But I know for me, I bought this day one when it came out on my 360. I bought the huge box with the giant dragon statue.
nice.
I put like 48 hours into it, and then it was like um well like my grandfather ended up passing away. Um so it was just like it was a week of like that, and we
Mm.
were just it was that was everything. Like they live out of town, so we like had to travel away and just like I was pulled totally away from it. When I came back, I didn't get back into it. I never picked it up again for the 360.
Yeah.
And then when they released the like new edition, I picked that up on the PS4.
Mm-hmm.
Probably played 40 hours of it.
Right.
Put it down again. I picked it up for the PSVR.
Mm-hmm.
I played 2 hours of it. The motion did not agree with me, so I stopped playing that, and I've never gone back. So yeah, I own this 3 times?
Right.
3 times because I don't have it on the PC.
Or the Switch.
I didn't buy the Switch version. I didn't buy the
Didn't
Switch
care
version.
about the Link armor.
You know what? And maybe at some point if Skyrim drops drastically in price for the Switch, because I know it's still around 70 bucks or 70 or 80 bucks. I don't want to pay $80 for Skyrim again.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
could
fair.
I could maybe justify like paying 20 bucks for it, but I cannot.
Mm-hmm.
After purchasing it this many times, I just can't do it.
Yeah. And so I would just like to mention this is a pretty good example of sort of sandbox open world games. This style of game, I feel for myself, and I'm sure a lot of people out there as well, this happens to simply because there's so much distraction in the game that it's hard to focus internally, even within its own game, that it never actually gets completed. Because I know quite a few people in my friends group who have played Skyrim and have never actually beaten it.
Yep.
They got to the point where they were just modding it and then modding it and then modding it, and then they've put even 3 times as many hours as I have, but they've never actually beaten the game. But it became a different game to them, or like, I mean, the main storyline in my opinion is pretty weak. That's one of the reasons why I didn't bother completing it, because it's like, whatever, there's all these, the cool thing about this is all the extra quests, right? And
Yeah.
like these types of games that are created in this light, I think in my opinion have a higher risk of this behavior that we're talking about happen, and I think that's kind of interesting.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I know with The Witcher 3, I eventually just told myself, I'm like, no, stop.
Yeah.
Focus, main quest, get it done, because you're gonna lose interest soon. I can feel it.
Yeah.
Just focus, finish the main quest, move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
even
I
like
did.
Baldur's Gate 2 can have that effect as well, because like I know people who've played that game who haven't completed it, and there's a lot of side quests in that game, and
Yeah.
it's just too much because it's like a 200-hour game if you do everything, or it can be
Side quests
anyway.
are amazing. They add a lot of depth to a world, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, they also add that high risk of burnout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So, so what are some of the games that you guys have like passed on or moved on from? Let us know down in the comments below.
Yeah, and we hope that you've enjoyed the video. If you would like to help us out, we'd really appreciate if you give the video a like, and yeah, share the video with somebody else who you think this topic would be interesting to. We are releasing 2 videos a week on Mondays and Fridays, and yeah, we'll see you in the next video.